Ready?
Yep. What's up, guys? We got Matt, we got Ramrod, and we're back. I'm Scott Sturman. This is episode 20 of the Midwest Angler Podcast. What's happening, guys?
Episode
2-0. 2-0.
We got him back.
That's an anniversary. I don't know what the stone for that is.
I don't know what is it? No, 25 is silver, I think.
Is 25 silver? Maybe 20 is nothing. Maybe it just goes by 5s, 10s, 25s.
Yeah. We get a Ramsey. That's all we get for him.
That makes it special.
We're going to quick talk with him. He's got to jet out of here in a little bit to go do some bowling. It's almost playoff time for the bowling league.
Pro bowler. He not much of a fisherman, but he's a decent bowler. So
he dabbles.
Yeah. So yeah, me and Matt got out. What night was that? Tuesday night.
Tuesday night.
Silver Lake.
Silver.
Yep. We got over there, went for some walleyes, pitched some plastics, and saw a guy at the boat ramp. He said that the day before they caught their limit, and that day they went out and did the exact same thing with no luck. So
yeah, it's a tough bite.
Yeah, we didn't have any luck neither. So
the water was kind of dirty. That surprised me a little bit. I don't know if the rain the night before kind of had an effect on that, and it was pretty windy.
Yeah,
evening when we first started out. But I think if we would have stayed probably after dark, I think we could have probably got into a few.
Yep.
You caught the big largemouth bass, the surprise of the night.
I did. I caught a largemouth bass, and when I hooked into it, I was like, "Holy mackerel! Like, what in the world do we got here?"
You had something big on.
When you're walleye fishing, and all of a sudden you catch something like that, I didn't know what to think. But
yeah, I didn't even think that there was much for largemouth in there, let alone one that was that size.
Yeah, I literally, when I saw the shape down under there, it was a tall enough fish. I thought I had a drum.
Yeah.
But
no,
it felt good.
Largemouth.
Yeah, it felt good. But
those can be kind of fun sometimes, those unexpected catches.
Oh yeah,
when you're out there fishing.
Definitely. It's too bad that we weren't bluegill fishing and catch a big walleye or something like that.
No, that's true.
I'm all right with a good bass. I'm all right with good bass.
It's a lot of fun when you're panfish fishing and catch a good walleye.
At least we didn't get skunked.
At least we didn't have ramrod in the boat.
That's true.
No, but today we're gonna talk a little bit about smallmouth bass fishing down here in the Rock River, and that's kind of one of our favorite things to do in the summertime, in the spring. Right now the river's a little bit high, and it not going to be good fishing here at least for another week. But
yeah, that always plays a role.
Like Matt was saying beforehand, it could set up to be a really good May.
Yeah, May is going to be dynamite down here for smallmouth fishing and walleye fishing, just fishing in general. I mean, because we catch so many different species here. It's about at that level where it's a little too high to fish. It's hard, it's running hard to find some of that slack water. You were down there the other night, Dusty, and it was kind of tough fishing it.
Yeah, the night that these guys went down to, was it Silver? Yeah, they were down at Silver. I went down there, and the water was high, a lot dirtier than normal. Tried to find a couple calm spots and do some slow jigging, just using a little white plastic. But yeah, there was no luck down there at all.
Yeah, but like this, we're supposed to get 70-degree weather this weekend. It's going to warm the water up fast. I don't think people realize how fast the water warms up when you get some of them warm days like that, and that'll really get the fish active and thinking about moving up to get ready to spawn. And then once it goes down a little bit, it's going to be good.
Yep. And what we're talking about here in Rock Rapids, we are very lucky. We got a place downtown called Island Park, and big public park. Anyone who's listening is free to come here also. And it's got a small dam that's probably about 8 to 10 foot wide, would you say?
Yeah.
Something like that. And then there's a bigger overhead dam a little bit farther upstream. That's maybe 60 yards wide, something like that. And yeah, right below those two areas always seems, that's a really good spot that holds a lot of fish.
Yeah. About anywhere you can find any rock is always a good spot to make some casts. And what we like to use a lot of times, like Dusty said, is just a twister tail. And white always seems to be a real good color. And an 1/8 ounce, 3/16 1/4 ounce jig somewhere right in there always seems to be pretty good deal for smallmouth bass, walleyes, northerns. you can kind of catch everything on it.
Yep.
Yep.
Like for you, Dusty, when you go down there and you're looking for a spot to fish, say, your favorite spot, what do you look for in the river? Like what you don't got to give up your favorite absolute spot, but what do you look for?
I'm like Matt said. I'm gonna say Matt's down there. I'm gonna fish next to him. But if I'm going down there by myself, I'll definitely look for the rocks. I'm looking for, like the bridges. I'll fish along the bridges. I'm looking for like some deeper holes too. So with all those rocks, it's the water levels are going up and down, and I try to find those deeper holes and drop down to the bottom of those. And a lot of times those little holes are holding one or two really nice fish. And the biggest smallmouth they even caught out of the Rock River was in a tiny little, like, I'd say 4 foot by 4 foot hole, and it was just chilling in the bottom of it. So
Yep.
Yeah, it was probably, and it was early in the year. My guess is that it was probably up there spawning.
yep.
And that's kind of the big thing about, like, with the river here. A lot of people kind of make that mistake of when they're fishing it, they're always casting way out there. And actually, you don't have to cast out real far. Like, right up along shore is where you get a majority of your bites in all reality.
Yep.
I mean, when I used to bring my class down there, when we go fishing down, that's what I'd always tell the kids, sometimes instead of making a cast, just take and leave about 3 foot of line out and just kind of go along the rocks along the shoreline, and next thing you know, they'd be yelling that they had one on.
Yep, that's how I taught Grady and Aubrey
Yeah.
too. Just dance that little twister
Yeah,
tail
just
around the
kinda jig
rocks.
it around and-
Especially if there's a good rapid that comes right up close to the shore,
Right.
and then there's a big rock in between, or
Right.
in the rapid. Just bounce it around right behind there.
Yeah, those
It
little
don't take
slack
long.
waters, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because of what they're doing is they're all sitting there with that current constantly going in the river. They like to find those bigger rocks, those boulders, and they just sit right behind those things and wait for the bait, whether it be, minnows, crayfish, anything like that, just to kind of come into that area, and boom, that's when they hit it, or one comes swimming by and they come flying out and smack it. So those are kind of some key areas to look for when you're down there fishing.
With you guys' experience, do you guys if you're sitting on the bank, do you think you do better casting upstream or casting downstream and reeling back?
Most of the time I'm casting downstream, and I'm a big jigging person. I'll cast it downstream, and I'll jig it upstream the whole way back.
Yep. And you just kind of skip it. You
Yep.
like to skip
Yep.
it back?
When I'm casting, if I ever do cast, into it and it's coming back to me, a lot of times the river is flowing, pretty good, and so it tends to come back a lot faster than I would like it to. So when I come and I cast it downstream, I tend to have a little bit more control
Yep.
over.
And when you cast it upstream, to those of you that are thinking about going up there and giving this a shot, I think your snag, you're going to
Yeah.
lose a lot of jigs down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Don't go down there with one jig, because you might only fish for one cast.
Right.
But that is one thing. I think when you cast upstream and you start working it back, the Rock River is so full of rocks
Yeah.
that you're gonna lose a lot of jigs.
Yeah, and yeah, we do. Every year we donate
A lot.
to it. So just,
A lot of
go,
lead at the bottom of the Rock River.
go to these tackle shops when they're having their sales, and just don't buy the expensive jigs, because you're going to lose it. Same way with like lures and everything. When you're casting a lure out there, don't bring a deep diver and throw it out there, because you're going to lose it. It's going to go down into the rocks, because most areas that I know of, the deepest, if there's spots that it's 7 to 8 foot deep, that's pretty deep.
Oh,
Yep.
right.
I mean, most of the water that we're fishing in, it's probably 3 to 4 foot at the most. So
At the
bring
most, yeah.
shallow running crankbait, something that's just going to run right underneath the surface. Ones that you kind of are the floating Rapala ones are always a good one. So otherwise you're going to lose a lot of that tackle. If you got young ones that you're bringing down there too, it's always cool when they have a tackle box full of lures, and it gets discouraging when they lose one.
Yep.
So just remember those things. And another thing to never forget, don't be afraid just to, when you got younger kids like that, take a bobber, put a jig head and a twister tail a little ways underneath the bobber, so it holds it up off the rocks, and then they can cast that out and slowly kind of reel that along, and you're getting the same effect with the twister tail and everything underneath of it, but that bobber is keeping it from going down into the rocks and them getting snagged up all the time.
Yep. And another thing, when you can find those rapids, there's normally, I think, what they call an eddy.
Yep, the
You know,
slack
that-
water.
Yep, just kind of goes in a circle. If you put a night crawler underneath of there,
Oh, yeah.
you know, just a foot or two underneath of a bobber and toss that out, a kid can sit, you know, make his home on a rock and, you know, just watch that bobber go around and around and around.
Yeah.
You know, the carp, the catfish, you know, you're gonna catch something
Oh,
down
yeah,
there.
and smallmouth,
Yep.
everything bites on a night
Yep.
crawler and a hook.
Yep.
Yeah, back to the upstream, downstream thing. Big thing that I do is, or why I do a lot of the downstream stuff is there's always a constant tension on the line.
Yep.
And I've noticed that when I am casting upstream and it's coming back to me, there's a lot of slack, and so I've missed a lot of fish from not feeling the bites. So,
Now you run a lot of tube jigs, both of you guys
Oh, yeah.
do, right?
yeah, I used to not really know anything of it until
Yeah.
Matt kind of introduced me into that, and that is like my go-to river bait.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that with the tube jigs, you're gonna get a few less snags too.
Sometimes.
You think?
It all depends how you work them.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got to kind of have a lighter head on there. The thing I like to do with a secret I like to use with the tube jigs is monofilament line, because when I run monofilament line and I get a snag, usually what happens is that head's kind of wedged in between a couple rocks. With that stretch of monofilament line, I can pull it back and snap it off there, and that will pop it backwards off of those rocks, and then I'm able to bring
Yep.
it back up.
Another thing that you can do if you get a snag is let a bunch of line out and let that
current
go down there, and then rip it back along that current. And you know, sometimes if you can pull that jig back just in a little bit of a different direction, you can pop it back out of there too. And yeah, just another little tip for
From my experience, I've noticed that you got to do a lot more hook sets, and there's going to be a lot more missed fish. I mean, that's just my experience with those, you know, those jig heads put into those tubes. That hook is kind of hidden in that skirt, so when you're setting the hook, you got to like sometimes really get it, sometimes not get it because you'll pull it out. But from my experience, I've missed a lot more fish, but a lot more hookups too.
Yep.
Yeah. And just a couple more things, you know, talking about fishing down here in the river. Remember, the limit is only 3 smallmouth bass.
Don't
Yeah.
keep them.
Yeah.
Don't keep them.
Catch and release, we always promote that. We always see a lot of people down there, buckets full of little ones. It's not worth it. The DNR patrols it quite often. You'd be surprised. Don't be thinking that you're going to get away with it, because you're going to get caught. There's eyes and ears down there as well.
I've called guys in.
Well, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Every year, there's
don't
always
waste the
people.
resource.
Yep.
And
Yep.
also, along with that, pick up your trash
Ooh,
along
yeah.
the bank. I mean, it's a river, I get it. After high water, there's always a bunch of trash that washes around, but even when it's low, there's bait containers laying around, hook packages, lure packages laying around. Fishing line, if you lose a bunch of fishing line, don't just leave it in the rocks. Throw it in your pocket and take it with you and throw it in the trash. Don't throw it out in the water or anything like that, because fish get tangled up in it. It just makes a mess. Everybody else, is getting caught up in it as well. So just a few things.
Nothing made me more mad than when I was selling bait.
Yeah.
Going down there to the river and seeing one of my styrofoam containers sitting there, and the dirt's everywhere, and ooh man, that just really grinded my gears.
Pop bottles, all that stuff. Also, another one too is you don't catch carp and throw them on the bank.
Thank you.
Okay, don't do that. First of all, it's
Stinky.
illegal. It's illegal, first of all. Second of all, it does stink. When summer rolls around and it starts to get to be 90-degree days and there's a bunch of dead carp laying up on the shoreline in the rocks, it's not a good combination.
Well, and I mean, I think of a guy like my neighbor Jeremy bringing his 5-year-old son down there.
Right.
And, they get down to their fishing spot and all of a sudden there's a dead fish there. And it gives all the rest of us fishermen a terrible black
Terrible
eye.
name.
Yeah.
Black-eyed.
Yep, terrible name.
Whatever
I
you
mean,
want to say.
anyone who is a non-fisher that walks down there, because there's a bike trail and a walking trail and
there's
everything
more
by
people
there.
that use it for recreational purposes than fishing.
Definitely. And if they don't understand that a carp is a rough fish, I get it, whatever. But if they just see a dead fish down there, or if they happen to see you while you're fishing, knocking carp in the head and throwing them up on the bank, you know, and leaving them, what do you think they're gonna think?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, they don't look at that like, oh yeah, you know, good job, that's carp. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Just let them go.
The way I look at it is, you know what? How would you like it if I caught a bunch of them and knocked them in the head and came and threw them on your front yard? Probably wouldn't like it very much. So don't leave them down there.
And there's a reason, you know, God put those fish in our river for a reason. I realize the Asian carp is an invasive species, whatever, but each fish serves a purpose in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, there's, you know, the bass, there's the walleyes, there's the pike, there's the carp. Every fish has its job.
Right.
And you know, the population is where it's at because that's where.
Yeah.
And they have a purpose. I don't care what anyone says. And they're a hell of a lot of fun to
They
catch.
are. They are. You know, if you ever see any of us guys down there fishing, don't be afraid to come up and talk to us. Ask us some questions. If you have a young kid, that maybe you yourself don't really have a clue of how to fish down there. Like Scott said earlier, we have plenty of years of experience fishing. Now, I grew up fishing down here in the river, and so have these guys. So don't be afraid to come up there and talk to us about stuff.
My wife is always getting pissed off because I'll come home at 10:30 and she's like, "Where have you been?" "I was down at the river." "It's been dark for an hour." "Yeah, well, so and so came and drove up and I got talking with them."
Started talking.
Yep.
Yeah, I basically talk to somebody almost every time I'm down there.
Oh.
There's people that come talk to me all the time, and we'll sit there after fishing in the evening and we'll talk to it's dark.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of times where you go down there for 4 hours and you only get about a half hour of fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that probably eats me is like I'll get to one of my good spots and I'll cast out and kind of get snagged on something. And I'll go, well, what was that? And then I'll get it out and get snagged on it again. Well, I end up getting snagged on some line, and I've seen people get out there catfish fishing or something and throw some big heavy weight out there at the bottom, and you're gonna get in a lot of spots you're gonna get snagged. And they would cut it at their rod.
Yeah, don't.
And so all that line goes into the river and just sits there.
Yep, I know what you're saying. It
really brings me back to another point, that if a guy was wearing Crocs, he could get out there in the water and get that hook out.
Yeah, that's the only good place for Crocs is out there in the water because nobody can see them on your feet then.
Alright.
We got Ramsey in between us tonight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I forgot we were going to have a
You said you wanted to have a
You son of
disagreement.
a... Yeah.
Got her being
No.
here in the middle.
Yeah. No, I don't know. What's you guys' biggest pet peeves about the river, aside from trash, aside from, throwing carp up on the bank? Like, what's the thing when you get down there that you just can't stand to see?
Ooh, that's a good one. Oh. Like I said, the trash thing really is something that bothers me.
I'm not going to lie to you, it just really grinds my gears seeing a bunch of people keeping bass.
Well, yeah, that always get.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that the limit is 3. You're allowed to do it, whatever. But I think there are so many high school age kids that go down there and, we're going to have a fish fry. They don't even realize that. And who knows, maybe bass is better eaten than what I'm giving it credit for. But, I mean, you got to know that they're going home with their Swiss Army knives and hacking away at the first fish, and it's like, yeah, well, that didn't really work out. What do you guys say we just throw these away and head over to Pizza Ranch?
Or they bring them and have all intentions of cleaning them, and then all of a sudden they get busy doing something else, and then they're just like, yeah, and they just end up in the trash. Now, I think the biggest part of that is when they're either, they're allowed to keep 3. I get it. If they want to legally keep 3, they can do it to clean. As long as they're cooking them, go ahead. But try to make them the 12 to 13 to 14 inchers, not like all these 18 plus.
17,
Because in the river, we don't get a lot of 18 to 20 inch or 18 plus fish in the river. They're usually that 9,
14.
10 inches up to 16, 17
Yep.
inches with 18 inches every once in a while. But kind of let some of them bigger ones maybe stay in there and because in the river they're probably pretty old fish when you really
Yep.
think about it.
Yep.
So I think that would have to be. I think now that you are talking about that, I think one of my big pet peeves is when I go down there, and there's people down there with nets,
Oh yeah.
and they're over there up below the spillway kind of area, and they're walking around trying to dip net fish and everything like
Yep.
that, and it's just
You,
like
you can't.
well,
You,
no.
you can't even do chubs. You can't do anything.
It's just like come
No.
on, people.
Yep.
You know.
You got to have a
Some
special
common
license
sense.
in order to
Yeah.
to do it, and even then, I'm not even sure how that goes. You got a roll, Ram?
Yeah, this will be my last comment before I head out, but I'd say, I mean, I get it, it's a river in the town, and some people don't, go to the swimming pool and some of that type of stuff, but one thing that kind of eats at me is when there's a bunch of people swimming, and like, especially if I'm fishing there, and then they show up and then they'll jump in, like, right where I'm fishing, it's like, okay, you see me fishing right here,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of other places that, to jump in, and there's a lot of people that tube during the summer and all that, but like some of the places where I'm fishing, you shouldn't even be swimming in anyways. But that's probably
We've been really fortunate in this town that we have not had any serious incidences in the river with
Oh,
people.
no doubt about it.
Because there's a lot of times where there's a lot of young kids down there swimming unsuper. I mean, it can get to be kind of sketchy.
Oh, no
That's
doubt.
what I worry about. See you, Ramsey.
I'm pacing.
Good luck at bowling tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Bowl a touchdown.
No, it definitely with the bridges and whatnot. People don't realize how dangerous it is if you're going to swim underneath of one of them bridges, especially if the water is pretty close to the top of that. Right now during the spring, you go down there and you look at all of the sticks and whatnot
Yeah.
that are getting washed down there. They're stuck underneath of that, and the current really gets going fast underneath of those bridges. You think that you're going to swim from the top side to the bottom side?
Not happening.
It's going to be bad news.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad
and
news.
also, like this time with all the rivers and stuff like that flooding, you get a lot of barbed wire in the river.
Oh yeah, I never even
there's-
thought about that.
There's a lot of barbed wire in that river, and I mean,
Yeah, that's
not
good.
only can you get a nasty cut and possible tetanus type situation, but you get your leg caught up in something like that, and that current's running pretty good. You might get pulled under, and I don't know. Like I said, knock on wood, we've been fortunate. Hopefully, it keeps up that way, but. It's a great opportunity for us. It's a great place for kids to go down there fishing. We've talked about it before, how cool it is to see all the kids down there on their bikes riding down there and on their mopeds, whatever. A lot of grandparents will bring them down there, let them go fish for a while. It's so cool. It's such a neat little area. I know a couple years ago they were talking about taking out the big dam, and
Ooh.
we were pretty passionate about that, about them not doing it because they want to make it into more of kind of a recreational kayaking whitewater type river, and they claim that they've done studies and that the fishing gets better, but all the other places that I've seen them do it to, it just doesn't seem like their rivers have gotten better as far as fishing. They've gotten worse. And
Definitely. You look at Klondike. Look at Klondike. I don't
Yeah.
care what anyone says. I used to go back to Klondike when I was in high school or right after high school, and I met a bunch of buddies over there, and we used to hammer catfish. We used to get northerns, and it isn't like that anymore.
Right.
It's still good fishing. Well, I don't even know if I'd call it good fishing, but it's all right. But it isn't like what it was. I know that.
yeah, and what do they call it? A lowhead dam or something like that? And they
Yeah, I think
all these
that's what-
safety issues, like over how many years, how many people have drowned in them. Well, just monitor people. There shouldn't be swimming in underneath of them and by them, and monitor that a little bit.
Yep. Bridges are dangerous too.
Yep.
But no one's looking to ban bridges, So,
Yeah.
well, yeah.
No, we're getting looking forward to that.
Yep.
Said it's gonna start up here pretty soon, and it's gonna be really good fishing down there.
Definitely.
This
Speaking,
weekend we got Iowa Great Lakes Bass Club first tournament of the year. I think we're gonna give it a go.
yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm not expecting a whole lot out of myself, but
Oh, you'd be surprised.
yeah, if I can weigh a fish,
Well, that's always the goal. Is you got to get one,
yeah,
and then two. Nice thing about that is like it's a 3 fish limit. All you got to do is catch 3 fish.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yep.
Especially 15 inches or bigger. It's always fun because there's the Iowa Great Lakes Bass Club. If anybody's interested in it, they have a bunch of tournament days throughout the year. A bunch of great guys. I used to fish in it quite a few years ago. I know some of the guys that are still in it. Like I said, awesome guys to fish with. It's a cheap way to get into tournament fishing, and there are some really good fishermen in those things.
Matt Deitch.
Well, no, I mean there's
No,
some really good fishermen there
Yeah.
that go and fish some of these big tournaments and
Yep.
do quite well in them.
It'll be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. The second that you told me about it and said, hey, I think maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
Kind of been giddy ever since.
It's
so.
kind of a cool format how they have it set up now. You and I will fish out of the same boat, but we won't be fishing against each other like it used to be in the past. They have an angler or a boater division and a non-boater division.
Yep.
So, we kind of work together. Even if we were going against each other, you still work together.
Right.
You take your 3 biggest bass and weigh them in at the end of the day, and it's always kind of fun to see what people bring in because they got to be 15 inches, and a 15-inch bass is going to be in there in that 2.5 pound range usually, and usually you got to have around 11, 12 pounds to win one of those tournaments. And so you think about that, that's a 4 pound average on a fish, and those are darn nice fish that you got to come in and catch with.
When Okoboji can produce some piggies.
Oh, I think last year in their fall tournaments, the one day 12 pounds won it, and one day 13 pounds won it. I can remember a few years ago, the spring tournament, somebody brought in 15 pounds of bass on 3 bass.
Really?
So
Yeah.
you're talking 5 pounds per bass, and that's a good bag.
Yeah, I wish that bass that I caught the other night at Silver Lake would have been
On
this Saturday.
yeah, that would have helped a lot.
Yeah, the old kicker.
Yeah.
But
No, so it's going to be fun.
yeah,
It's supposed to be a nice day out there.
75.
I don't know what the
Ooh.
wind's supposed to do, but
Last I looked, it wasn't supposed to be super windy. It was really supposed to be a pretty nice day. So
all right.
yeah. Well, unless you have something else, we'll leave you guys with that. That is episode 20.
20.
We'll see ya.
Next episode next week, it's going to be legally able to have a beer if it wants to.
That's
21.
right. That's
She'll
right.
have 21.
I'm leaving for Florida
Oh,
next
that's
week
right.
on Tuesday. So we'll see if we can maybe record
figure
something
something
over the
out.
weekend, or maybe we won't even have an episode this coming week, but we'll figure it out.
That's right.
Episode 21 will come when episode 21
You got
comes.
you got some fishing planned for down in Florida.
I do.
don't you?
I actually just got off the phone with Captain Josh here a couple hours ago, and going to be going 1 week from today. Going to go out with him, and I think maybe there's a couple of days after that. The kids and my dad are going out with me on that morning, and if I don't have anything going, and if he don't have any trips, maybe one of the days after that we'll go. And he actually today he said that yesterday his boat was sitting out there and they were shark fishing, and they had a whole bunch of tarpon come through.
Ooh.
That
Don't tempt you with a good
no,
time.
just even hook one of them and just see it come out of the water.
Yeah.
They spend more time out of the water than in the water. So
Who's the guy that you usually go with down there?
his name's Captain Josh Roberts. If you want to look him up on Facebook, it's Fish Southwest FL on Facebook, and he's got Instagram too. He's super awesome dude.
Yeah,
I
seems
mean,
like
very
it.
driven,
Stories.
and I'd say he's about my age, give or take a couple of years. I'm not really sure, but yeah, he works hard and very friendly, great with kids. If you're ever in Southwest Florida and you want to go fishing, that's the guy to go with, no questions asked.
So awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, one thing before we leave, I gotta wish Grandpa Deitch
Grandpa Deitch, 93.
Happy 93rd
Woo!
birthday to Grandpa Deitch. My
Nice.
cousin did some math today, and he's seen she put on there that Grandpa has seen 16 presidents in his lifetime, and
Really,
how many days that
that's awesome.
yeah. I hope to be 93 years old someday and going like he's going.
Yeah, you
so.
dang right. The other night when we did that podcast up there, we lost a little screw off the microphone. Next thing you know, Grandpa Deitch at 93 years old is down on his hands and knees looking for that screw.
Yeah,
Jeez.
going around. That's like when we did some deer meat a while back, and he's down there, hands, getting right into it too.
I'm 30, and I'm like, ugh, to the ground. All right. So,
That'll humble you.
yeah. So, all right. We'll see you next episode. Peace.